What's up, guys? It's Jay Holland with thewolverine.com, and we are back with another Q&A show. I'll be answering all of your questions tonight. Before we do, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for free, get notifications every time we drop new videos. And of course, we do this for free, so make sure to give us a like. If you want even more Michigan recruiting intel, you can head over to thewolverine.com, use this special promo code UM1. That's $1 for 2 months over at thewolverine.com. Get exclusive insider recruiting information, team information, basketball, the transfer portal. Plus, we have a great message board community with thousands and thousands of users, so don't miss out. Use that promo code UM1. That's $1 for 2 months. Today's show is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Dollar Shave Club. When you rep your team, don't stop at the jersey. Dollar Shave Club's collegiate razor handles combine grooming with glory, letting students, grads, and fans show their school spirit and style from the sink to the stadium. Shave with school pride. Visit dollarshaveclub.com to grab your college handle today. And as always, go blue with your handle. Here you go. You can go to Dollar Shave Club, get your handle and just go to the colleges section, click the block M, of course, and you can get your maize and blue handle today. And it's only $8. That is an absolute steal. And it is a limited edition University of Michigan diamond grip handles. So they will sell out at some point. So make sure to take advantage and get yours today. Again, it's only $8. You can't really beat that. You can't even buy a Happy Meal for $8, it seems like. So make sure to take advantage of this special offer and use that University of Michigan diamond grip handle in your sink today. It needs to be in every fan's bathroom. All right, guys, let's go ahead and answer your questions. Remember, they will be answered in the order in which they came. If you want to skip the line, you can always use the super chat button. That money goes directly to my travel budget so I can continue to see top Michigan targets and commits across the country. And I will be seeing a big Michigan commit this weekend, so I'm excited about that. Each user is limited to 3 questions as well. If you want to get in a bonus question, you can also use a super chat. But let's go ahead and get started with Zachary Pizot, who says biggest names coaches are seeing during the bye week. So yeah, Michigan is on a bye week this week. That means they will be out and about on the road seeing top Michigan commits targets like I have. So yeah, they get a chance to hit the trail, get out there. Obviously, they already had a bye week and spent some time seeing mostly commits that first time around. This second time, it's going to be a mix of commits and targets. So Sharon Moore will be in the Detroit Metro, so he'll stay local, and he'll actually see Dakota Grant, who is one of Michigan's top overall targets in the 2027 recruiting class, and that was first reported by our Ethan McDowell over at thewolverine.com. And I think that Michigan continues to trend well with Dakota. Obviously, he has his eyes on Ohio State and Oregon as well, but Michigan is doing a great job there. He was looking to get back on campus over the weekend, didn't make it, but he will be at the game later this month. And he did make a visit for that win over Wisconsin in early October. So, and he's visited Michigan more than any other school. He has ties to the program. His cousin's Jacob Bowden. He plays for Jacob's dad, Rod, who's a Michigan grad at Harper Woods. He's part of the Sound Mind, Sound Body program. So he spent some time around Bryce Underwood. So I think Michigan is still, like I said, trending well there. And I think that Sharon Moore making that visit on Friday night shows how big of a priority Dakota Grant is. And, like I said, Michigan will be seeing some other targets, some potential flips. They'll also be seeing some of their key commits. Obviously, one of the biggest storylines as we head into signing day is, can Michigan keep Julian Walker, top 100 edge out of South Carolina? And so Lou Esposito will be down there to see him. They didn't get a chance to connect during that first bye week. So Esposito will see Walker as Michigan looks to fight off South Carolina in that recruitment. Remember, Walker just made an OV to South Carolina a couple of weeks ago. His father's on the strength staff there. Michigan will be getting him in for the game later this month. And Tony Alford will be out here in Virginia to see five-star running back Savion Hyder. I'm not sure if Savion's going to play this week. He didn't play last week. He has a minor ankle injury, and his team's already clinched a playoff berth and a league title. There really isn't a reason for him to play. But I have been told that Tony Alford is still expected to visit him and, spend some time around him. So, Savion was just on campus himself in October, and he plans to be back for the game as well. So those are some names to know. We'll have a full video here on the Wolverine YouTube channel breaking down the coach's travels. Zachary Pizot says, any intel on guys that might transfer out this year? Feels like Shamari Earls isn't happy with his playing time. Not right now. That's more of a question for our team guys. The portal is still 2 months away. Remember, they pushed it back from December to January. So, we'll have to see what the buzz is a little closer to that. We're still in the middle of the season. I don't think it really warrants discussion right now. Zachary Pizot says, why doesn't Michigan make a move with Kevin Brown or Leighton Von Brandt? So Kevin Brown is a prospect I really like. He's committed to Penn State this cycle, really highly touted offensive lineman. Michigan's looking to take another offensive lineman this cycle, but Brown, very highly ranked guy who has a ton of interest from other schools as well. And I think the thing here is Michigan doesn't want to really get into a big recruiting battle for a top offensive lineman. I don't think they want to really spend NIL there right now, given that they've spent NIL at the position here recently. I think they're fine taking a development guy like Sean Stover as a center. Adrian Hamilton is also on the board as a center. At tackle, they're still in it for Tommy Rahman. So I think that Kevin Brown is just too highly ranked, and like I said, they don't really want to recruit an elite level guy. Leighton Von Brandt is a 27 who decommitted from Penn State, also an offensive lineman. Look, Michigan already has two offensive line commits right now, and Tristan Dare and Luis Esposito. And I think that they are going to be very selective with who else they take along the offensive line. They obviously really like Jakari Lipsey, who's an in-state guy. And I think they're trending well with him. So, it'll be interesting to see how the offensive line options kind of shake out in 2027. But Von Brandt, I'm sure, is on the radar and a guy they're monitoring. Tyson Smith says, will we land a 4-star linebacker or just these plan D guys? The only 4-star linebacker left on the board, really, you had Braylon Hodge commit to Oregon. So the only guy really left here is Nick Abrams, who's committed to Georgia, and they're going to continue to swing for him. But I've grown more pessimistic about that one. I think there's a lot of work to do. It's more of an uphill battle. And the remaining guys are all 3-star guys. The Iowa commits are still on the board, even though there hasn't been a ton of movement with them. Kason Thomas, Billy Wyboda. Obviously, Michigan's trending well for Aiden Reeder, Wisconsin commit, who just made his OV. They had Caden Catchings, a South Florida commit, on campus for an OV. So, they just offered Marcus Jennings, who's committed to Pitt. All those guys that I mentioned are all 3-star guys. So unless, somebody gets a bump here, again, the only guy left on the board is Nick Abrams. So that's a 4-star. So I would say probably not, unless the rankings change for maybe some of these late risers. Tyson Smith says, what does J.B. Brown do recruiting wise because he can't coach? J.B. Brown, man, he's been getting flamed by the fan base lately. From a recruiting perspective, J.B. Brown obviously recruits the specialists. So Michigan has 2 specialists committed, Colton Dermer, the nation's top-ranked long snapper, and Micah Drescher, one of the nation's top-ranked kickers. So he, again, recruits the specialists. From an area recruiting standpoint, he is from the state of Texas. His father was a longtime high school coach, and he is on Michigan's staff as well, just in the high school relations department, I believe. So, he has deep ties throughout Texas, and he was out there really early seeing guys that even ended up in the class. Zion Robinson, Jordan Deck, he was involved in their recruitments early on, and again, was helpful in the identification process and the initial relationship building process as well. So he does help out with other positions. With area recruiting. And so he recruits a multitude of positions. And he also helps out with safety targets as well in particular. So he's not really the primary recruiter for anybody other than specialist, but he is a guy who has his hat in, the state of Texas and, the safeties that Michigan is recruiting. Tyson Smith says it's Taco Tuesday. Build your ultimate taco. So I think a lot of you guys know I'm from Texas, particularly South Texas. And I saw this debate like not too long ago where people put down flour tortillas and say that it's not a traditional thing. It is in northern Mexico and in South Texas. And in South Texas, the flour tortillas are very large. They look like burrito tortillas. And we have like massive tacos. There's a spot where I'm from called Isabel's Cafe, and they do these huge tortillas. And my orders was always pretty simple. It was just fajitas, beans, cheese. That's it. In a large flour tortilla, and I'm happy. Lou says, EJ, with Freeze out at Auburn, does Michigan go back to recruiting Shadarius Tootle with the wide receiver woes? With the exception of Andrew Marsh, could Michigan go to the track team and have tryouts for wide receivers? So the first question is, will Michigan circle back with Shadarius Tootle? They could put out some feelers there, but it's just like with Nick Abrams, man. Like I think Michigan is really hesitant to spend NIL on linebacker. So I feel pessimistic about Abrams. I wouldn't feel very optimistic about Tootle either. So maybe they circle back there. And there was some contact earlier this fall, but if they're not going to invest NIL, I don't think they'll land either of Abrams or Tootle, which is why they missed on them in the first place. And then in terms of wide receivers and going to the track team, I don't know, man. Definitely not the track team, but obviously the portal will be huge for wide receiver. 2027 will be huge for wide receiver. I think Michigan will step it up from an NIL perspective. From the portal perspective, hopefully Michigan can get past the admissions issues that prevented them from landing Skylar Bell. So we'll see how that goes in January. Lou says, even with the wide receivers in the class of 2026, does Michigan invest heavily in the big three wide receivers in 2027, especially with what we are seeing with these wide receivers? Bryce needs playmakers. It's going to be hard to land all three of those guys. And for those that don't know, the three wide receivers that are mostly talked about here are Quentin Burrell out of Chicago, Dakota Warand, who's an in-state kid that we mentioned earlier, and Monsoon Sales, who is a five-star prospect out of Indiana. And Michigan is definitely in the mix with all of them. I think it's going to be hard to pay for all three. I do think getting two is realistic, especially if you throw in, you should really make it the big four, because Matthew Gregory, who visited Michigan here recently, is arguably better than Warant and Burrell. Like I would rank them Sales, Gregory, Warant, Burrell. So, and Matthew Gregory Monsoon Sales is a freak. He has legit track times, but Matthew Gregory has verified track times. He's the fastest out of the group. And when you look at Burrell and Warant, they don't really have those verified track times. And I obviously have harped on Michigan needing more speed in the room. So I'd love to see them land Gregory. But I do think they'll invest heavily in NIL at wide receiver. It's just, how many of those guys can they land? I think, you have to set the bar at two there. Ben Ricketts says, what flip targets are you feeling the best with at this point? I think that They're obviously looking to flip another offensive lineman. They're still, trending in a positive direction for Tommy Froman, who is committed to Miami of Ohio, the offensive tackle legacy. They want a center in this class, even though I think Bear McWhorter could be a center, but they do want a center. So they will get one of Sean Stover or Adrian Hamilton. I'm just not sure which one yet. At linebacker, I think they'll close with Aiden Reeder. I think that when you look at the other guys that are on the board, they could take another. So maybe they add Marcus Jennings, who they just offered today, who's committed to Pitt, or maybe they take Caden Catchings, who was on campus, who's committed to South Florida. And then in the secondary, I think they'll take at least one more, depending on how things shake out. They could take two, but Michigan remains in a good spot there for Hayden Finney. They're the biggest threat to flip him away from LSU. They just have to get him on campus, and they're still there for Jamarion Vincent. I know he didn't flip right away after his visit, but they're still working on the Baylor commit. Ben Rickett says, where does Michigan sit with Noah Roberts? Could you see him in the class? So Noah Roberts is a 2027, and I could see him in the 2027 class, top 100 running back out of Arizona. He just made his visit over the weekend, and I think that Michigan is definitely in that top group. Michigan running backs coach Tony Alford does a tremendous job of building early relationships, and he's done so with Noah Roberts as well. I think Michigan really moved the needle this weekend. It's very running back friendly, and you saw what Jordan Marshall did here against Purdue that had to really open Roberts' eyes. And Michigan has proven that it can use two backs in this offense consistently over the past several years. So with Savion Hyder coming in ahead, I don't think that puts a damper on Alford's chances of landing a high-end back next cycle. So I think they're very much in play for Noah Roberts. Ryan says, is the plan still to visit Timmons on Friday? How do you see that one going? Yeah, so like I said, Michigan will be out on the road. They will be seeing some commits and some flip targets. So Jay Timmons, who is a Florida State legacy, he will be getting a visit from Michigan secondary coach Lamar Morgan. And we've talked about him a little bit, but not too much. Michigan technically hasn't offered him, I guess. That could change this week. Right now, the biggest threat to flip Timmons away from Florida State is Ohio State. He was actually just at Ohio State for an OV. But if things go well with Morgan this week, then maybe Michigan can get him on campus for the game. But he is wavering from Florida State. And like I said, the plan is still to see him this week. And remember, just keep in mind that they have already seen Haven Finney, so they will not see him this week. They saw him when when Michigan played at USC in LA. Ryan says, rank these cornerback targets in order from best to worst, and then rank the guys in order of the odds you think Michigan will land them. The best corner on the board is Haven Finney, and then I would probably go CJ Brona, and then Jay Timmons, then Jamarion Vincent, and then Danny Odom. I think Finney is the clear one for me. And then like Timmons, Brona, and Vincent, you could put in any order. And then I think Odom is further behind those guys. And then rank the guys in order that I think Michigan can land. I would say Finney would be at the top, and then Vincent, who's already visited, and then Brona or Timmons, depending on how things progress with both of those guys here in the next few weeks. And then I think Odom is, further down there. I think that, he was expected to visit after he got the offer, hasn't visited yet, and his commitment seems to be growing stronger with Nebraska. Ben Rickett says, who's the most vocal recruiter in the 26 class? This class is really interesting in the sense that the guys did a great job of peer recruiting themselves, but a lot of the guys in this class are very quiet, especially like the highly touted guys. Like normally you would want your big vocal leader to be, one of your highly ranked recruits. But when you look at Savion Hyder, he doesn't like to interact with anybody. So, Savion's just a quiet, private guy. So I wouldn't say he's a vocal recruiter. Carter Battle is kind of the same way. Like Carter is just super quiet. He's not on social media. Doesn't really like talking to people. So, and then you look at Travis, and Travis looks like he got out of bed in every single picture. I always make fun of him for that. So, like these guys that are your like highly ranked like faces of the class, they're all quiet guys. But I think that they did a good job of connecting with other recruits on the visit. So, like, even though Carter doesn't talk a ton, he's really good friends with Travis and Boney and Julian Walker and guys like that. And even though Travis doesn't like to talk, he's super good friends with the Virginia guys like Andre Clark and Dabney. So I think the on-campus visits, the official visits in the summer, really help these guys bond. But I wouldn't say there's anybody in the class that's like that super highly touted vocal recruiter. They're all kind of quiet guys, man. They like to handle business. Ryan says, last cycle, Michigan randomly came out of nowhere in the 11th hour and threw a massive bag to Flip Haywood from Bama. Do you see something similar this cycle, or are most targets already identified? I would never rule it out. We're exactly, or I guess a little less now than a month away from signing day, and nobody has really emerged behind the scenes. Like Ty Haywood last cycle, I think it was around this time that we started to hear some buzz behind the scenes. And then if you guys remember, I saw Ty Haywood during Thanksgiving when I went to Dallas to visit family for the holidays, and I saw him play. And, at that point, it kind of became very apparent that Michigan was making a run. Nobody like that has really popped up behind the scenes. So we'll see. Like I said, I wouldn't rule it out, but there isn't anybody that's really lurking, to be completely honest. Salty Rock 2. Hi, EJ. Have you evaluated in-state guys like Dewey Young or Jakari Lipsy? I have not seen either of those guys. Michigan has not offered Dewey Young. They are recruiting Lipsy very hard. The in-state guys that I have seen in person, like the bigger names, would be Anthony Cartwright, Donald Tabron, who obviously is a 28, not a 27, Dakota Warant. Those are the guys that I've seen in person. We've talked a lot about Grant and Tabron, but Anthony Cartwright, man, he's a guy that I really like in state. He's a super athletic tight end, a lot of upside. He's visited Michigan more than any other school. He was back on campus over the weekend. I like where Michigan's trending with him, and I really like him as a player and as a kid too. He's really fun to talk to and really fun to see live as well. Salty Rock 2 says, do you think Dakota Warant or DeAndre Biden is better? I never really like comparing guys in different classes, because you never know like if guys will progress or regress, right? Like if you would have asked me who I like better, like a Jaden Davis or somebody else as a sophomore, I probably would have gone with Jaden Davis, and then my opinion would have changed when he became a junior. So, right now, Biden's actually the higher ranked guy. Like in 2028, he's I think a top 15 guy, and then Dakota has dropped a little bit in the rankings. I don't know. I have seen Biden live too. Like I saw him in 7-on-7 this offseason. He's a top 10 guy. I saw him in 7-on-7, and he was dominant. So maybe I'd go with Biden, but like I said, I don't really like doing the class comparisons because so much could change. Salty Rock 2 says, thoughts on Michigan being top 5 for Juju Johnson. So Juju Johnson, one of the elite corners next cycle out of California. Michigan's done a great job of recruiting him. They just have to get him on campus. Until he does get on campus, we won't know more. But I think it's very positive that Michigan is in that top 5 for him early on. He's the number 36 overall recruit in the country. Noah says, I know you have no control over the rankings, but do you know why On3 was so low on Andrew Marsh last cycle? I can answer that. I had several conversations with Charles Power about it, and we printed some of his comments over at the Wolverine. I think that with Andrew, they thought he was a guy who was a very high floor prospect who kind of peaked early on and then dropped in the rankings gradually. He didn't have any verified track times either. He did run track, or he participated in track, but it was a jumping event. So he didn't have any like and he did do like, I believe the 400 meter, or the, one of the longer distance relays, but he didn't do like 100 or even a 200. So he didn't have those verified track times you normally see from wide receivers. I think a big question mark with the rankings department for Marsh was the speed, and it was for me too. I ended up ranking Marsh I think it was like a borderline top 100 prospect. And the biggest thing that kind of kept him out for me of being in the top 100 was the speed question marks. But I really liked everything else about Andrew Marsh, the physicality, the leaping ability, playing bigger than his size, just a natural pass catcher, which you've obviously seen, advanced route runner for where he is. And that's kind of the same thing like with Travis Johnson. Everybody knows how much I love Travis, and he's right there for me as a top 100 guy. I just don't have any verified types. I think on 3 though, they ranked Marsh a 3-star. So, I don't know why they ranked him that low, but some of the reasoning was more so just, a guy they didn't see progressing as much as some of the other wide receivers in the class and didn't have those, verified times, I guess. Before we get into the next wave of questions, this show is sponsored by MyPerfectFranchise. If you've already got your Dollar Shave Club razor, why not think about franchising? Are you a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands? Or are you an experienced entrepreneur wanting to diversify? Andy Luedecke can help. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. Call Andy today. Put your life and career in your own hands. Best of all, his services are 100% free to use. So what do you have to lose? Andy can help you with all types of franchises. Normally you would think about, Chick-fil-A or Arby's or Wendy's, but Andy has a ton of other things. You can even get into like construction franchising, or like my dad called me today and he was like, "Hey, I'm sending you something for your birthday on FedEx," and they charged me $50. And I was like, "Dad, it's like $10." And I was like, "Are you sure you went to like a real FedEx location?" And so, there's things like that. There's like a ton of FedEx locations and UPS locations. Maybe you can own one of those franchises. Andy can get you into anything, man. All you have to do is call Andy at 404-973-9901 or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Okay, let's get back to the questions. And we are running low on time, guys. So make sure to, if you want to skip the line again, use that super chat before we get into rapid fire here after Joey D's questions. Joey D says, "Hey, EJ, where does Michigan sit with Dakota, Grant, and Quinn Burrell? Do you still feel good about your prediction for Dakota? And are you close to putting one in for Burrell?" I put in a super early pick for Grant, and I still feel like Michigan is right up there. Like I said, he has his eyes on Ohio State and Oregon as well, but I think Michigan continues to be in a good spot there. For Burrell, I don't know, man. I think Michigan's right up there with Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame just got a prediction not too long ago, but Michigan, if any school can beat Notre Dame, it's definitely Michigan. So that's but like I said, Michigan's in that top 3 for both of those guys. Joey D says, "Why aren't they into top 20 guys this class like other classes other than Kamon Spell, but he's likely not coming here?" So I think he's asking why Michigan's not involved with any like top 20 national recruits in 2027. Obviously, Spell is one. It's still early in the cycle. I think a lot of those recruitments are NIL driven, and Michigan just hasn't sorted out who they're going to really spend NIL on next cycle. So I would expect that to change. And Joey D says, "Do you expect this 2027 class to be top 10? It's still really early. I mean, Michigan always has the potential to finish in the top 10. They did so last year. They're number 10 right now. So 2027 certainly has the talent in Michigan's own backyard and throughout the Midwest to put Michigan in a strong spot to finish with a top 10 class. Daniel Rebane says, hey, EJ, hope you had a great weekend. If Michigan flips Aiden Reeder like we all think, will they still try to flip Cass Tech linebacker Marcus Jennings from Pitt? Would be nice to get one Michigan kid. I think so. I think they're leaning more towards taking 2 more linebackers. Obviously, they already have Markel Dabney committed. They're training for Aiden Reeder. So I think you could see them add, Marcus Jennings or Caden Catchings. Kevin Huffman says, Michigan is going all out on MS. Why not do it for a 26 wide receiver? So he means Monsoon Sales in 2027. Why not do it for a 2026 wide receiver so Bryce Underwood could have 2 years with them instead of 1? I think the portal is going to be very important. It'll be really interesting to see who Michigan lands at wide receiver, and I think they'll spend NIL at the position if they can get through the admissions hoop. They were willing to do it last year with Skylar Bell, but, again, that fell through. 26, man, not a great year for a wide receiver. They did explore Chris Henry Jr. earlier in the cycle. I know people laughed about it when I reported it, but there were some preliminary discussions there. They obviously discussed it with Calvin Russell and were in the mix there before he committed to Syracuse. But there isn't really like a guy like a Monsoon Sales that I would really be like, hey, Michigan is missing the boat by not spending NIL here. I'd rather spend it on Sales, to be honest. He can be a freak as a freshman. I get your logic. It makes sense to spend on a wide receiver in 26, more time for Underwood, given the fact that he may only be at Michigan for 3 years. But who do you really spend it on, man? Like, it's not, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't spend it on Russell, if I'm being completely honest with you. So portal or bust here. Michelle Wallace says, got on late. If I asked someone already, I think she's just asking where does Michigan stand with Stover and Brona. So Stover, again, the center out of Texas. Michigan's going to take a center, not 2. Michigan is in on 2 centers, Adrian Hamilton and Stover, and they'll land 1. I'm just not sure which one yet. And then with Brona, and you see Sean Stover here, 4-star in the industry, back-end 4-star. CJ Brona, talks have continued to occur there. It's just about getting him on campus for the game, so we'll see if that happens. Michelle Wallace also asks about the 2027 class, Kamon Spell. He is still set to visit Michigan for the game later this month. Michigan continues to be in that top group following his decommitment from Penn State. Obviously, he's the number 1 running back in the class. So there's going to be a lot of competition. I think a lot of people have pointed, to Savion Hyder. Would he come in behind Savion Hyder? He's definitely interested, and Alfred's done a great job there. So we'll see how the visit goes this month. 3-star Taylor. Yeah, that could be anyone, man. There's a lot of people with the last name Taylor. So off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure who you're asking about. David says, is Michigan recruiting Feister as a running back or a linebacker? So that would be Braden Feister. I should have asked his dad if you pronounce it Feister or Feister. But anyway, they are recruiting him as a linebacker. Most schools are recruiting him as a linebacker. He can certainly play some running back, and he's had success playing running back at Hovind. But I like him at linebacker. I know most schools like him at linebacker. I mean, he's a big, strong dude, an accomplished wrestler as well. So I think that Michigan is definitely up there. Ohio State hasn't offered. Penn State was considered to be the favorite before they canned Franklin. Now that that's happened, the door's wide open here with Braden. I think he had a really good visit over the weekend, and a great family too. I really enjoyed talking to him, and they offered his younger brother as well. And, his father seems like a great guy too. JH says they spent on Norton and it was a waste of cash. Just develop. I still think you need to look at the portal for guys, just if you miss on a portal guy, you miss. Like the portal is still very important as well. Dutchman says, could Peter Bork reclass to 26? He could technically, but we haven't heard any talk that he will. Right now, he's happy staying in 27. JH says, with Sharon Moore's weaknesses showing, do you see top recruits shying away? No, I mean, Michigan 7-2. I mean, obviously the game against Purdue wasn't ideal, but they came away with a win. There really hasn't been any negative backlash from recruits. I didn't even realize we passed the 30-minute mark. So let's go rapid fire here. Gary Gaines says, maybe it is my opinion, but we are extremely weak at offensive line coach and wide receiver coach. Have you heard any rumors on changes in the coaching staff at these positions? I'm sure Sharon Moore will evaluate all guys on the staff, this offseason and make some changes, but that's more of a question for our team guys. JH says defense wins championships. Why not spend on linebackers? Linebacker just isn't like a really highly valued position, not just for Michigan, but across the board. I don't think a ton of schools invest, like crazy at the linebacker position. But I do think, if it were me, I would just pay for one. Like I would just, spend NIL on Nick Abrams. JH says UM will need to throw the bag at Marsh to stick around Ann Arbor. I think Andrew Marsh is having fun being a playmaker as a true freshman. So, he has a great relationship with Bryce Underwood. I mean, if I were him, I don't think he'd leave. But anyway, Dutchman says, is anything good or is the team just a dumpster fire like Penn State? I mean, they're 7-2, guys. Dutchman says, which 2025 recruit surprised you the most so far, good or bad? Jaden Sanders has gotten on the field sooner than expected. Looks like he's going to be a really good player. I thought, I didn't have him ranked as high as the industry. The industry had him ranked higher than me. And I thought he was going to need way more time to develop. So he's been definitely a pleasant surprise from the 25 class. I'm assuming you mean the 25 class, like the freshmen on the team. If you mean this class, like guys in 2026, like how they're performing as seniors, I would say, not that I was overly surprised, but I would say that I have been very excited about the quick progression of Carter Meadows and him establishing himself as a true 5-star. And I would say I'd want to see more from Ludwig. I'm still high on Matt Ludwig, but I'd like to see more domination against lower level competition out in Montana. All right, guys, that's it. So I appreciate y'all for joining me. Again, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for free, get notifications every time we drop new videos. As always, subscribe to thewolverine.com. Use that promo code UM1. It's $1 for 2 months at thewolverine.com. Get exclusive information on everything Michigan recruiting, the team, transfer portal, basketball, and so much more. Plus, you can be part of a message board community of thousands and thousands of users. All right, guys, I will see y'all next week.